Hello everyone and welcome to another stream, a live stream with the ToLiss Airbus A321. It's been a little while, so thank you all for coming. Apologies for the delay in live streams recently, but here we are back again, ready to go. And today you can see we're in this rather smart looking KLM Airbus A321, which is obviously fictional. As we can see on the other side, there's the far more likely to see 737. I think that's probably a 700, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe an 800. You guys will probably know better than me. As ever, I always start these videos by saying I am a real-world Airbus pilot, so hopefully this can help bring some extra context to your home simulations, but of course, not for any real-world use. It's just for our fun and explain, and we're going to see some of those limitations as we go through. But we have had an update on the ToLiss today, so I haven't fully explored everything on it, but we'll have a look at a few of those things. I think it was mostly bug fixes. So today, the plan is we're going to fly here from Amsterdam. We're currently parked on gate Delta 29, which I can show you there. And we're going to fly to Dublin. The reason is there's a Vatsim event there. They've closed the main runway, runway 28, and they're expecting to land on their shorter one, which is used in real life. It does occasionally happen. They have a lot of work in progress as they're trying to expand and build another runway on the north side. So what we'll do is we'll go and see what madness is going on there. Probably adds a lot of delays and so on to the flight, but hopefully not too long, because I've always taken extra fuel before, as you guys know, not had any trouble so far. Before we get started, just have a quick look in the chat. Hi, Swappy. Thanks for coming along live. Yeah, you've been on the Discord. So good to see you here. Glenn as well, another regular. Hi. Richard V, of course, a regular from right back at the starts. Hello to you, Richard. Pavel as well. Glenn, thank you guys for coming. The flight surgeon, hello again. We've got Liz05. Oliver Harrison, hello, Ollie. Ian Morris, thank you all for coming. Ariel F, a regular. Dave, first time watching the stream, welcome. Thank you very much for coming along. And Swappy, yes, having the SpaceX stream simultaneous is probably a good idea. I'm sure they're doing very exciting things on that. I hope you've all had a chance to enjoy the launch yesterday. It's been quite an exciting time in spaceflight, certainly. Thomas Mortimer, thank you for coming along. I've seen a lot of your comments on my videos. Thanks for watching. So here we go. Let's go have a look. So slightly different start to today's stream. We are sat here on stand. I've got all the doors open. I was suggested a new checklist by one of my Discord contributors, so I've got that open here. So we're going to use this at some point. But first of all, there's no ATIS available here in Amsterdam today, so I'm going to have to get my clearance from the ground controller, who it sounds like was just telling somebody off. So let's get that set up. Before I do that, we'll just have a look at the route we're expecting. We're going to fly from Amsterdam, not sure which runway yet, via BERGI. I put the route into the description because I was commented on that some people maybe like to fly along or do it again in the near future. So basically we're going to take off and head pretty much west straight over to Dublin. Flight time isn't looking too long, around 1 hour and 8 on here. I think it could be a bit shorter unless we add in the holding. I'll show you why en route. There's a bit of a bizarre arrival into Dublin, which we may or may not fly, we'll see. As we can see, it scrolls all the way along, just pretty much west, round to the north, and then in. So hopefully that's pretty reasonable. Alternate today is going to be Manchester with the KLM 741. Nice low cost next. We could increase that, get our move on. And there we go. Weight-wise, I have done that so far. So on the init B page, we're sitting at 64 tons, so not too heavy. Reason is we're going to a short runway, so I don't want to be getting there and then embarrassing ourselves as we trail off the end. So yeah, 64 tons, it seems reasonable. Fuel, as you can see from my charts, we're expecting to need not too much really. 7.4, that gave us 15 minutes contingency. I'll talk a little bit en route about fuel planning and so on. But yeah, 15 minutes is plenty, but given the fact that they said they were expecting it to be madness was their description, I've added a little extra fuel. So instead of going with 7.4, we're going to go with 8.5. So that's just over another half an hour on top of that, depending on the situation. Right. In the setup, I've put in 5.9. A lot of these are cleared to flight level 60, a lot of the SIDs from Amsterdam, but this is quite common for pilots to do, to remind themselves that they haven't actually got clearance yet. So you can just put in the 100 feet lower than you're expecting to be cleared to, and that should remind you that you haven't actually got the clearance. The risk if I put 6 in there is that I might think, oh yeah, of course, we've had that all confirmed. So let's talk to air traffic control, and I hope I get this right because they seem to know very much what they're doing in Amsterdam. So we just got the ground frequency 121.8. Let's talk to them. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Do let me know in the comments if there's any audio issues or anything like that. Amsterdam, good afternoon, KLM 741, Airbus A321, stand Delta 29, QNH 1022, request clearance Dublin.
KLM 741, you are clear to Dublin via the BERGI 4 Victor departure runway 36 left. Initial climb flight level 60, squawk 6276.
KLM 741, clear to Dublin via BERGI 4 Victor 36 left, climb flight level 60, squawk 6276.
KLM 741, correct, report when fully ready.
Wilco, KLM 741. Okay, there we go. So we'll get that all changed over. I suspected that might happen. So first off, squawk was 6276. Great. We're going to be the BERGI 4 Victor from 36 left. You remember, if anyone saw my last live stream, we had plenty of runway changes as we went through. So 36 left, very unusual. I don't know if I've ever done that. BERGI 4 Victor. BERGI 4 Victor. Let's set that up. I understand some guys are having trouble with the audio. ATC is a bit quiet. Hi, Captain Matteo. Yes, thank you for coming along. I've got your checklist on the go, and we'll have a look as we go through. Foxtrot asking, what's the reason you have to activate secondary flight plan when flying a circling visual approach? Good question. That's in my circling video, so I won't talk about that just yet, but I'll remind me later on in the flight, and I'll try and get back to you on that one for the reasoning. Let me see if I can get ATC a little bit louder for you guys. Hopefully that works now, and then we'll see. Just tell me as we go. It does vary a little bit. So yeah, 36 left. That's a long old taxi out, and off we go up out to the west. I guess that makes sense. We're heading west, so we don't want to be taking off on the right-hand side of the airport and then having to cross over the paths. So I can now confirm my altitude on here. Put in 60 to become a flight level, and we'll finalize our performance. While I'm in here, time to close those doors. Close. I stuck on a bit of extra taxi fuel as well because I was worried about exactly this. See those doors close. I would really like the ToLiss to include some more. They've got great animations on the features. It'd be nice if we could have some ground equipment. I don't know if any of you guys have that available in your sims. Flight 24, thanks for coming along. Good luck. Yes, we'll go and see what madness is going on in Dublin. Ali Pay 2, hi Captain, hello, thanks for joining us. Simon Taylor, thank you for coming along. Very good to see you all. Milio, hi Captain, thanks for sharing. No, you're welcome. Thanks for coming along to watch as well. And Glenn Chambers, do you have a link for the checklist? Yeah, I'll provide that. I'll have to speak to. It was provided by Matteo Chewy, so I'll show you as we go. Maybe he can give you some more information. So there we go, starting to get ready now. Doors are closed. Let's fire up that APU. You press the master switch on, then there's a 3-second wait before you press the start. Otherwise, it may not necessarily work. And there you go. Even then, it wasn't enough. So they've simulated that quite well. A lot of pilots are tempted to just push one, then the other, and then they sit there pressing this about 3 or 4 times like that, just as I had to. Put the seatbelt signs on. Fueling's complete, so that can go on. We've got our 8.5 tons on board. So while that's all spooling up, everything else looks ready to go. Let's get this performance in. Is that air traffic any louder now? Hopefully that's working for you guys. We'll go to performance then. As I said, we've got our 64 tons, 0 fuel weight. I always do flap 1. I'm not entirely convinced about the speeds for the ToLiss on long runways. I think it's a little bit artificial. The speeds are too high and it ends up rotating or even just getting airborne while you're still meant to be on the runway. So here we go. 36 left with no shift. We're going to use a flap 1 takeoff. Flaps 1 flex of 42. As you'd expect, a nice long runway. We don't need much thrust over the normal. V1 158. VR 158. And even these speeds are pretty high. 161. So that should work out nicely, flap 1. 220 clean. It's worth noting, as you know, any speed restrictions on our SID as we head out. Transition altitude low at 3,000 feet. So it will already be on a flight level. It's one of the peculiar things of Amsterdam because there's no terrain around. They have you on a flight level very early. Any Americans watching, I'm sure, would find that quite unusual, seeing as I think it's always 18,000 feet in the United States. But here we go. So we have our numbers loaded on here. Climb nav blue 152. We've got our 6,000 feet ready to go and to become a flight level. That was fixed in the last update. So now that should work nicely. Previously, it would have said flight level, which was incorrect. So here we go, looking good. So that's the performance done. And it's set all the way through. Right, let's have a look at our SIDs, see that we haven't missed anything before I embarrass myself. So I was expecting that chart, which is absolutely nonsense now. So we're cleared by the BERGI for Victor, which is here. So all the way up to 36 left. I put on extra taxi fuel to get out there just in case. Many crew will do that. It's a long way. And we may do single engine. It's quite a long way, so I think it's worth a try. Can't see any speed limits. 2,500. Yeah, and the box agrees up to 250 knots straight away. Left key, and then our left turn. Echo Hotel 034 above 2,500. No problem making these restrictions at this weight. And out we go via BERGI.
Transavia 594 Yankee,
Okay,
welcome to Amsterdam.
excellent. What I might do is just save that so that we have it ready just in case the worst happens. So, and we'll save that ready. Okay, so it looks like we're ready to go. As we can see for pushback from here, it's going to be back tail that way. So you guys will constantly be banging your heads against the tables as you watch me struggle with this. Let's try pre-planned pushback. It's going to be this way, isn't it? There's no other aircraft around, so we can't go too far wrong. I'm not sure what those white lines mean, actually. That would be something that someone may know. Someone who works in airport operations might have a clue. But it's going to be to there. So let's do that. Press
Ground to
enter.
cockpit, plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
Okay, pre-planned. Okay, do I need to do anything else? I'm not entirely sure. Just have a quick glance through the comments. Question about VFR on the ToLiss A321. To be honest with you, no, I haven't done any. Oh, VR, sorry, VR. No, I don't, sadly. My laptop just isn't capable of virtual reality on X-Plane. I'm sure it'd be great if it could. Swap yes, ground handling deluxe plugin. There you go. So it is possible. Or you can get the jar design ground handling. Okay, interesting. So thanks for that, guys. Great. Okay, you can use start pushback instead of pre-plan. Yeah, that's what I was doing before. I'm gonna call them now.
Ground to
Start
cockpit,
pushback
tow is driving up.
and get them to come around now. Okay, let's call for a push and start. Ground KLM 741, stand Delta 29. We are ready. Request push start.
KLM 741 pushback and startup approved.
Pushback startup approved. KLM 741. Okay. So are you guys able to hear that at all? That ATC, I understand it's quite low still. But anyway, we're pushback startup approved. Tug is connecting. There we go. Yeah, so this livery, as we said, is completely fictional. I quite like the goggles they've added. I like that detail. We had it on our
Okay,
Thompson
all
livery
doors
as well.
and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Apparently airlines have to pay for it, so you'll see that not all airplanes have it. The Neos don't have it. I have no idea. Sorry, some Neos don't have it, and I have no idea if it provides any purpose. But it does look pretty nice, I reckon anyway. Sound is good now. Excellent. Thanks for that, guys. So looking good. There are some stands in Amsterdam where when you get pushed back, you get stuck, and in a 321 on one engine, it can be a little bit tricky. Right, so they're ready to go. We've had our pushback clearance.
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Check that these are closed. Check the windows are closed. The flight deck door is all closed and locked. And that is us pretty much ready to go. So let's open this checklist. I'll just see how that compares to what I was expecting to do. That's the engine start procedure, cockpit prep procedure. So that's slightly behind. So we'll have a look at that. See what signs on AP bleed. Okay, these are slightly different. So I'll carry on with that afterwards. But yeah, we'll get the AP bleed on that. Is a good idea. And we'll remove the ground power. That would have helped. Ground services, ground power. There we go. Okay, fantastic. Strobe on auto. You'd leave it on auto for the turnaround because it does enable it to come on when you take off if the slats are out and so on. So it's quite a useful feature to do. Okay, pushback's ready to go. Let's go. Brakes released. Start the timer.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Oh, I've had this happen before. Very scary. I do not like this. I'm hoping something improves shortly. Flight 24, you love this part of the flight. Still on stand, or the swinging around as we push back. Look at that, fantastic. I don't know what I do wrong when I set that up, but that has happened to me before, so it must be something I'm doing. So this is a long old taxi. We're going all the way out to 36 left. For anyone not familiar with Amsterdam, that it means we're somewhere here. We're Delta 29, which was here. We're going to go out probably onto Bravo, all the way around and along over the top. We're going to go along, we're going to cross this runway and get over there. So this would be a classic one engine start scenario. So let's do that. So to ignition, and with single engine taxi, we just start engine 1. Pressure, ignition, wouldn't really be igniting already, because it wouldn't reach that just yet, I don't think. But there we go, N2 spinning, all looking good. Open pushback again and plan the pushback. This way it starts straight away. Okay, I have to give that another go next time. Stream music. Are you on Vulcan? Yes, this is on Vulcan. So I've got the beta. I've just got X-Plane through Steam, and it's been fine. Occasionally I load it up and it just doesn't load into Vulcan. It says, "Oh, I failed," and OpenGL. I've had that happen a couple of times. Or worse, it doesn't load the screens properly, and I have to change a graphic setting to get the screens back. And I've also had it just run out of RAM, even though I haven't actually run out of RAM. It just seems to decide it doesn't have any more space left. So a few things
Operation
like that.
complete. Go ahead and set the parking brake.
Okay, so that's available. That's good. We'll listen to the ground crew then. We're not moving. Pilots will always look out the side. That's the easiest way, because looking forward you can't really tell. But there we go. Moving a little bit, but looks good enough. Parking brake is set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
So this is a flow, so that can just go back to norm. APU can go off. We'll leave the APU on, and we're going to start up the yellow electric pump. We don't need the engine anti-ice. It's a nice day. Temperature outside of 21. Nozzle steering disconnect. That goes to amber when you've had an engine running and the pin is still engaged. So it's just warning us that we can't taxi yet because we'll just roll in a straight line. The ground crew have control of that. That's for them. So disconnect. I might try the dome light. I was wondering if that would help for you guys' visibility. Okay, we don't need that. We're going to arm the spoilers, set that. If I bring up the trim, what is our trim today? On the fuel prediction, 27.1.
Tow is disconnected and bypass bin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
We will indeed. Thank you very much. So there's 27.1 set. And we'll set the flaps to takeoff. Flaps 1. We'll do all of that now. And they can travel because if we look at the hydraulic page, the yellow electric pump nicely feeds those. So otherwise you get a nice warning. It is possible if you put the flaps out without the yellow pump, it would still work very slowly and you'd get an ECAM warning. Oh, this always happens. There we go. There's the hand signal received. Very important. So we waved him off. Let's go and have a look at the after start checklist. So we've got the procedure. So we've done that, I can do that while taxiing, and I will, even though I still haven't sorted a few things out. Weather radar. I wouldn't put the weather radar on just yet, especially around the apron area, because it does put out a little bit of radiation. And I'll do the auto brakes once I've done the flight control check. So I'm actually going to just hold it here and do that during taxi. So there's some slight differences here. I haven't had much time to look at that checklist, so I will have a deeper look at some point in the near future. So let's get taxi. KLM 741, request taxi.
KLM 741, taxi to holding point runway 36 left at Whiskey 5, cross 36 center.
Taxi to holding point runway 36 left at Whiskey 5, cross 36 center. KLM 741. Right, that is a classic Amsterdam skiport instruction. The reason is that they have these charts that show us nicely where they want us to taxi, so they don't really need to describe it to us unless there was some aircraft in the way. So what we can do is we're departing, and I can see that Bravo, I'm on Delta 29, I need to get out onto Bravo and use the outer taxiway. And I can use that all the way around this loop, all the way along here, and then Whiskey 5 is at the middle of the center runway. So along Bravo, up Delta, left on Whiskey 5, and then Victor is the only way up to 36 left. So that's good to go. We check very carefully. The ground crew is definitely gone and it's all clear around. Put on those lights. So it's all clear on the left, all clear on the right, and release the brakes. Now, the irony of this is I very carefully thought about this flight, and I thought, well, I don't want to have you all sitting there watching me taxi around for 20 minutes like we did at the end of the last stream when I was in Madrid. And sadly, I've managed to construct a very similar situation because I was expecting to go from 06, which would be a little bit simpler. But there we go. That's my mistake.
Good afternoon.
So on single engine, even at these weights, a little bit of thrust needed on the 321. Wouldn't go any more than that really. 40% is a limit, very much so, especially in manoeuvring areas. You don't want to go faster because of the wash. Do a brake check. Yeah, looking good. Those are all fine. And you'll be very careful. You could have all sorts of airplanes charging up and around here. They may get told to give way to you, but you may not be told that they are giving way unless air traffic thinks it's an issue. So sometimes you can be a little bit surprised. So I'll have the terrain here and here. So now we need to decide when we want to start the other engine. I reckon we'll go up here, around here, and start it on this straight bit here so that it's got time to warm up before we get round across the other runway. You wouldn't want to start an engine crossing a runway. Certainly, it's distracting. What if something goes wrong with the engine start and you need to deal with that? And you also wouldn't want to have to be on one engine across the runway if you can avoid it, because again, what if you struggle to get across the runway? Something like that. It's worth noting as well, runways are often sloped, so they'll have a slight rise in the middle. So to get across a runway, a bit like a road, there's a camber to it to help with the water and so on. So to get across on one engine can be quite difficult if you're relying on that. So it's not something you want to get yourself stuck in. It'd be very embarrassing to block a runway at somewhere like Amsterdam or Manchester, another classic place for that, because you didn't start up the other engine when you should have. Okay, let's have a look and have a quick look into the comments. Glenn Chambers says that we fixed in the next update. I think that's talking about the Vulcan issue I was talking about, so that's good. Yeah, I'll be very pleased if that does. And Theo Logue says, can someone tell me here how the plugin above means the flight routes? Ah, yes, that's a Fly Live plugin for the stream. I won't go too much into that. If you want to, there are videos out there that guide you through that if you're interested in doing it. It's quite surprisingly easy. I managed so far, although I do occasionally forget to set it up, as the guys who watch me regularly will know. Aerial air flicking at streams have a meditative effect. I'm glad. I hope they have a nice effect to let you just relax and enjoy them. That's the point. And hopefully if it helps you with your X-plane at all, that's great as well. Swap ES, do European airlines start engine 2 and then 1 when doing dual engine taxi? Yes, all airlines will. So the Airbus, we start engine 2 and then engine 1 as routine, because it will provide the pressure to the brake system here by starting engine 2 first in case there's a problem during pushback. The reason we don't do it for single engine is because, well, partly because single engine is a relatively new procedure. The Airbus wasn't really designed with single engine taxi in mind, like most airliners. This was designed back in the 80s or earlier, but the advantage of single engines is so great. It's quieter. We don't wear the brakes down as much, because with two engines, as you'll know even from the 321 in X-plane, you have to constantly use the brakes to slow down, which heats them up, which can become a problem as you get to the runway, and it also wears them down. Carbon brakes on airliners like this, when they're cold, they wear down very quickly, so that's not very efficient at all. Right, I just need to concentrate for a second to make sure I get this right. This is quite a big area of concrete, and it's very easy to follow the wrong line. Yeah, we're going around here. Let's get the speed going up a little bit. Yeah, so the brakes are cold. So if you're constantly having to use them on the taxi out, you'll warm them up, which will be good for the takeoff. They'll grip better, but you could have them over the takeoff limits by the time you get to the runway, like on a long taxi like this. Or you might find they are just getting too worn out, so you're having to pay a lot of money. They're expensive, I imagine. All parts of airplanes are. So you're having to pay a lot of money to have them replaced all the time. So there's a great advantage to single engine, and never mind the fact, of course, that we burn less fuel, which is better for the planet and also better for the airline, as it doesn't have to spend money on all that fuel. And you'll see here our fuel flow, it is quite literally half, which is great. 400 kilos an hour taxiing, that's pretty standard. As I said, in real life, we actually could turn off a pack. I still don't think it works on here. If I take off one pack, and on the current generation aircraft, so the CEO engine aircraft, you'd then see the N1 reduce. So what's it at, 20.8, 20.7, because it's having to feed both packs. actually I'm talking nonsense because engine 2 is off, so it'd be pack 1 would make the only difference here. If you're on 2 engines, that would have helped, but there we go. But yeah, it doesn't quite simulate the bleed pressure changes, which would mean that you'd burn less fuel just like that. And anyway, we need air flowing through the cabin today. Hot day, plenty of passengers in the back. Right, we're on our straight leg, so we said now would be a good time to start the engine. So what we're going to do? Well, we are going to turn off that yellow electric pump. We don't need that anymore. We don't actually need it to taxi along because the PTU will now provide hydraulic pressure to the yellow system. It just wears it out. It's noisy in the cabin and so on. So that's off now. And then we can turn on the APU bleed to provide pressure. Otherwise, we'd have to do a cross bleed start, which is a bit of a pain and would need to rev up the engine and all sorts. Not very practical for taxiing along. Put that to ignition. Yep, we've got that. Now, I messed this up last time I did it, so let's see if I can get it right. That should go on. Have I done that right? Start the timer. Seems to be working. And it's spinning. And there we go. And now there's no igniter yet. The igniter should come on a bit later, is what I would expect. Nice spooling up sounds that ToLiss has. Oil pressure rising. And what I want to see, and there you go, the EGT drops. Because there's sort of hot air left in the engine, the EGT will drop when it starts motoring like this, because it starts pumping fresh air through until your fuel flow goes in. And once you see the fuel flow going in, we want to see some ignition, so the EGT rising. If we look on our lower screen, we see our igniter system A. The Airbus will alternate which system it uses, so it will use system A, then system B, then system A on alternating starts on that engine. But you'll soon find that if one system fails, there'll be a long start while it takes time to do it, but it will eventually use both igniters. Okay, let's get moving. Probably boring you guys. This will be about a 45-minute taxi at this rate. Right, so that engine started up nicely. We've had the available message. Start the timer, check it nice and warm. Put that back to norm. Get rid of the APU bleed, get rid of the APU. Don't need that now. Not going to use the engine anti-ice. BAGSO like that. And hydraulics are all back to normal. So there we go. And that's pretty much it. And now, without any thrust on, the airplane will gradually accelerate. We'll see the speed tick up, which the ToLiss guys have done a really good job of simulating, I think, the way the airplane sort of rolls around on the ground, because it is exactly accurate that when you release the parking brake, the airplane will just start moving forwards, especially at lightweight. Right, where are we going? I think we're going to go right up Delta to cross at Whiskey 5. In Amsterdam, yeah, you can get that wrong quite easily, and I've seen it happen many times and been close to doing it myself, and the controllers are quick to correct you. They have this system, and it works well. It means they can use really short taxi clearances, like he gave us just there. It was just one instruction, basically, and you can get yourself all the way across the airport. Okay, I missed out on a few comments. As I go through. Yeah, Fly 24 likes the pre-departure vibes. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's nice to get in the airplane, I suppose, and you're finally done with having to queue up and think about whether you're going to buy a sandwich for the flight or things like that. You can just sit down and off you go. Time to get on your journey. Captain, sure, I need to move the weather radar. Yeah, I suppose that would probably work better. But yeah, no, thanks for the checklist, and I'll have more look at it as we go through. Richard V, yeah, okay, I'm glad you're enjoying the taxi as well. That's always a relief. And Thomas Mortimer, there you go. That's why I was saying there that Amsterdam is pretty unique in having such clear taxi instructions given in such a short format. It's really nice. Okay, let's hope I've got this right. Second right, yeah, that's good. I wonder how the controllers are feeling about me driving around in one of their local aeroplanes as a 321, but there we go. Sure, they don't mind. It is Flight Simulator after all, that's why we enjoy it. So I'm going right here and then left at Whiskey 5. And he's cleared us across, but I'm going to confirm it with him because it's been, you know, a fair few minutes. Then this was recommended in my Discord. So thank you for that recommendation. It's the XRAS system. So I'm curious to see how it works.
Just for the next time, it's always a right-hand side traffic in Amsterdam, so we'll taxi north, take Charlie.
Apologies, KLM 741. And there you go. See, I managed to get it wrong. Should have been on Charlie to cross at Whiskey 5. Now, this chart doesn't show that, but there must be another one that makes that clear. KLM 741, can we confirm we're cleared to cross at Whiskey 5?
KLM 741, affirmative, cross 36 center at Whiskey 5.
Cross 36 center at Whiskey 5, KLM 741, thank you. Now, I would have always confirmed that because you don't want to get that wrong. And if you're tired or you've been doing 4 sectors that day or anything like that, there'd be no reason to then have to embarrass yourself by blocking an active runway. So we're cleared across, but we're not entering or taking off. Sorry, we're not taking off from this runway. But let's put the strobes on anyway. That makes us a little bit more visible. You can also put on the landing lights. Some pilots will. I won't today because I'm going to be pointing across the runway as I do it anyway. There we go. And we've easily had, oh, not easily, but there's our 4 minutes. And here's the RAS. So this RAS system is a real system. Some Airbuses have it. It's not a requirement. It's quite useful, and all airlines seem to configure it differently, which we'll talk about as we go along. There's lots of different options for RAS, and not all airlines use it. It has its disadvantages as well. You saw there that it told me I was approaching 18 center as I rolled over the middle of the runway, so it wouldn't have helped me too much in that situation.
There's no more ATC after this point, so monitor Unicom 122.8. Have a great flight. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Monitor 1228. Thank you very much, KLM 741. Goodbye. 1228. There we go. I will do that. So making our right turn now to take Victor. And there's another control tower out here in Amsterdam which deals with this area. Oh, it's a bit fast for that turn. A bit sporty at 17 knots. If anyone was standing up at the back, they'd soon be wobbling around the cabin. What have I missed here then? US Airlines start with engine 1 first. Ah, swappy. Is that so? I did not know that. Is that always the case, or when they're using one engine, or is that when they're using both engines? Because my understanding was always 2. I've never seen it done the other way, but that's not to say there isn't another way of doing it. There's Airbuses are done in all sorts of ways. And Richard V noticed that. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to go and have a look. I've not seen it before when using 2 engines. Marcin Rotkiewicz. Thank you very much for the interesting and helpful channel. Well, thank you very much for commenting and for coming along. ToLiss A319. Yeah, and I'm glad that, you know, I always fly the 321, but of course the 319 and 320 are essentially the same. That's the whole point. You could go and fly these on the same day. No problem at all. Richard V. I spend a lot of time in Polish virtual airspace off to Gdansk for circling. Yeah. Echo Papa Golf Delta. Excellent. Liz 05 agrees about Gdansk. Yeah, very nice airports. What else have we got going on? Theologue, yeah, thanks for coming along. Thanks for the kind words. Excellent. Sorry if I missed a question, guys. I do try my best, but it's not always possible, as I'm sure you know. Oscar, thanks for coming along. Yes, this is a Vatsim flight. So right, for this part of the taxi, again, there are arrows here on other charts. I've obviously not set my charts up properly, but we would carry on straight here and then go left. So I'm going to go to full length Victor 4. That's where I did my performance from. And it give me time to realise what I've done wrong. Glenn, you landed on 36 left. Always N1 first. Yeah, interesting, Matteo. Really interesting. Oliver Harrison asking about the Crew Dragon launch. Yeah, I absolutely watched it. I hope, as I said earlier, I hope you guys did as well. If you wanted to, it was quite spectacular. So yeah, very exciting times. Thomas Mortimer. No, I haven't tried the Flight Factor A320. I've been tempted, but it's as you guys know, Flight Simulator is quite an investment at times. And with the ToLiss, I've still got plenty more to learn, and they seem to be updating this. So once I've got to grips with things X-Plane and ToLiss, I may well go to the Flight Factor. It does look great, and the graphics especially look really nice. I don't know how deep the simulation of the systems goes. I've heard different things, so I don't know if any of you guys have thoughts on it, but yeah, that's is something I've certainly considered. And I do like the 320, especially the 320 Neo, which I'll talk about later in the flight. I'm hoping we get a good Neo version of this 321 as well. Ian Morris, it looks like engine 1 had ignition straight after engine select, but engine 2 had ignition after 22% N2 as normal. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't have expected ignition to have started that early, so I'm curious. The flight surgeon, that's a big question, asking what's the favourite approach in real life. I'll have to have a think about that one. I did do a video early on into Alicent, which is a really spectacular airport to fly into. So that's a very old video I've done. I probably need to redo that and get some better graphics and scenery going for that. But that is a nice one. Other places that are pretty enjoyable would be Nice, Innsbruck, the classics really. I'm sure you've all seen those on on various YouTube channels. Right, let's concentrate on what we're doing then. So Victor 4, I'm going to bring it to a stop because I actually haven't done anything I should have done. Parking brake is set. Okay, so we started the engine, time to do the flight controls. There you go, I've done this whole taxi and I haven't managed to check the flight controls. Full left, full right, neutral, full down, full up, neutral, and we'll do the rudder. Full left, full right, and neutral. Excellent, and the FO can do their side stick checks. And meanwhile, we can put this to auto, system 1, auto. I'm going to wind the radar up. I've had a request about tutorial on the weather radar, so I'm definitely tempted to do that. It's a shame it's not quite as accurate as I'd like. It doesn't seem to paint weather as well, but certainly could be interesting. Put that to TARA. These are all in the right place. We're going to have max takeoff config, sorry, max auto brake. We'll ding the cabin to tell them we're pretty much ready to go, and we can do our takeoff config. So just for curiosity, and I do apologise if I'm completely misinterpreting how to use this checklist. We've done before taxi. So before takeoff, cabin status, we've done ATC. So we'll put on the lights, absolutely. I do forget that quite commonly in the streams. Transponder to TARA. You can actually do that during the taxi. It depends on airline procedure. But yeah, absolutely. As you enter the runway, a lot of people do it then. Then we've got before takeoff checklist with these checks. So a lot of this would be done already, so I'd be tempted not to get too involved in checking that many things as we enter the runway, but there we go. So engine's warm. I should contact 122, or certainly monitor 1228. As I'm sure many of you have realised, I've completely missed that as well. There we go, 1228. Put that over there. And how are we doing? 1228, monitoring Unicom. So yeah, let's get those lights on, because I will forget anyway. That's on. Landing lights, those are already on. Put that to takeoff. It's just another bulb, but much brighter. Don't need the wing lights on. That's only really if you're looking for ice. Nav lights can stay on too. Excellent. Okay, I think we are pretty much ready to go. So we've got our speeds. Little departure brief just to check nothing's changed. He didn't clear us for anything different, so we're doing our departure, which was called the BERGI for Victor. Off we go, climbing up to a flight level 60, which we will set standard once we're on the way. Navving to the left, making the restrictions. MSA is nice and low here, so we'll be above that whilst we're not flying on that SID. Excellent. Off we go then. So it looks clear on the approach to me. I have a better view outside. Just enjoy our livery sitting on the ground again. There we go. Clear all around. So brakes release, entering the runway. Let's see if the RAS system talks to us now. Let's put that to arc. Oh, that's clever. This came up on its own. See, there's so much. I've got so much to learn with X-Plane. So yeah, we've done that. We've done the strobes, lights, nose lights, transponder, no smoking signs, which you could use off and on. Yeah, crew info. Let's do that.
36 left.
Which would ding and ding. Approaching 36 left. Absolutely. Someone's saying TARA set. Yep, TARA is down there. It will say TA only until we get airborne, because it won't obviously give RAs. They're inhibited down here on the ground and so on. Right, let's get going, and then I'll have a look through, and you can tell me what I missed once you're in the air. Before, I'm pretty sure the Amsterdam controllers will come and tell me off if I don't get out of the way of the runway. So let's start the timer.
On runway 36 left.
And we can go for a rolling takeoff today. So half side stick down, 50% N1, stabilized, and then 2 clicks forward. Man flex 42, SRS, order thrust is blue, and off we go. Feel that wind trying to weathercock the airplane. 80 to 100 knots, releasing the pressure on the side stick. Remind me about that wind vector. It shouldn't be showing a wind vector quite like that on the ground. The real Airbus would just show you a head or a tailwind at this point. It doesn't actually know because you're still on the ground. It can't tell. There's V1 and rotate. As soon as the nose wheel's up, I can release the rudder pressure to let it weathercock. 3 degrees a second, and up we go. There's nav mode, as expected. They fixed the flight director issue. Hooray! So previously, about now, that flight director would have just gone full left and then slowly come back in, which you can see in my last video. Positive climb, gear up. Getting distracted now talking to you guys. But there we go. It seems to have fixed, which is excellent. So we got acceleration thrust reduction at 1500 feet. Amsterdam is unusual. It's below sea level, so we're expecting that just before 1500 feet on the QNH. And there we go. Into climb, lever climb. Thrust climb, auto thrust, lowering the nose, and now we start our acceleration. I'll have a look at this checklist very shortly. So how's this all looking? Looking good. We'll put it in autopilot 1. There it is, AP1. And we'll make our first turn shortly. We can stop the timer now. We're only timing to check we don't run at takeoff thrust for too long. In real life, I often leave that timer running until I've got the flaps at 0. It just reminds me that there's still more to do, because if we had a speed limit or something, it could be easy to forget. And I leave it as well until we turn the packs on, in case we did a packs off takeoff, just to remind me there's more to go. Okay, so through S-speed, increasing, flaps to 0. Auto retract seems to happen anyway. Making our left turn. And we're cleared up to a flight level, so let's set standards. Standards, we've got out blue, flight level 60 now, excellent. Flaps are up, so once that's done, we disarm the spoilers and we can turn off these lights attached to the nose wheel. We do not need those anymore. Nice day today, nice weather. I think most of Europe's had nice weather. I hope you guys have managed to enjoy it. Right, so we're on Unicom now. I hope 1228. Yep. So you guys previously told me that I can just pretty much do what I want. So we want to cruise at, I believe it was 360. Progress page will tell me. There it is, 360. Let's go. No point messing around. Unusual for my streams so far. I don't think I've ever made it up that high in any of my streams. I have done in some of my full flight videos. And here we go. So landing lever, that is up. I almost forgot that. So there we go. Autopilot is in. Here's the noise abatement procedures. Now that's a nice detail. I did talk about that a little bit in my latest Q&A, noise abatement. So we'll talk about that when we get going. Thrusters at climb, flaps are at 0, speed brakes are disarmed, packs are both on. We've turned off the nose lights. Contact at ATC. There we go. Yeah, that's interesting. My previous checklist didn't appear by itself. We've already set standards. Transponder TCAS below. Yeah, that's interesting. So a lot of people will set it to below in the cruise, so you can see who's beneath you in case you need to descend suddenly. I know that some airlines' procedures will be to set it to normal, just have it in between, and certainly above for the climb. But as I've said before, it doesn't actually matter. You'll get your TCAS RA either way. It's just talking about what we display, and the display is not very accurate on some aeroplanes. There's different versions of TCAS and TCAS displays. The fanciest versions will show it. Oh, that's not good. We're going to get kicked off of Vatsim here. Oh no. What's happened? What has happened? Oh no. We've lost everything. We have lost everything. Vulcan's crashed. I shouldn't have done it on Vulcan. That is a disaster. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Let's hope we're going to load back in. We may have to skip Vulcan and go for the ToLiss reload. And we'll reload and then we'll restart X-Pilot and see if we can get back to where we were. I think that should be close to or possible. Just have a look through the comments while my computer thinks about its life. I do apologize. That's terrible. Absolutely terrible. So we're booting up. I'll just scroll back through the comments. So Swap ES flight factor is great, but a bit heavy on frames. Yeah, I've heard that as well. So the good graphics, but a bit frame heavy, which again, as we've seen, could be a bit of an issue for me. So are we using Vulkan now? Yeah, it does say Vulkan. Now I haven't had any trouble. So let's resume the last flight and hope that this works. So again, apologies, guys. Marcin Rotkiewicz enjoys the perfect pronunciation. I'm glad. Thankfully that worked. So good. Masan Hasuna, hello sir. Why do I sometimes hear a continuous chime after takeoff? I don't know. That probably means that something isn't quite right with your configuration. Could be an overspeed warning, something like that. But great, yeah, absolutely. And NEO version is in the work, Buki Malice. Thank you for coming along to the stream. Apologies for this slight interruption, but yes, I have heard that a NEO version will be coming for the 321, which would be great. Hi, Geordie, thanks for coming along. And Richard V as well, yeah, talking about the 321 NEO. And I think your laptop would struggle to handle. Yeah, okay, I'm tempted to agree with you. This is unusual. I think this is a stability issue, but certainly where I have the graphic settings doesn't give me much confidence that the flight factor would be good for that. Yeah, it is a laptop, guys, which is part of the reason I have some difficulties here. Captain Matteo Chewy, it does paint weather only pretty bad. Yeah, and that's what I've seen. Whereas the real radar is pretty sensitive. It can pick up water in the air. So any sort of heavy cloud, it will get a good readback from, or any rain. Whereas the one in here seems to just need big thunderstorms before it will show it. Thomas Mortimer, yes, I think that comment came up. I think you've mentioned that on the video. It's a nice idea. I like the idea of having the NEO look. There's quite a few differences to the NEO aeroplanes. They've got differences in the automation, in the FMAs, in the capability of what the airplane can do, and the version or the NEO will fly its own TCAS. You can do a go around in the NEO that doesn't need full thrust, so it can reduce the rate of climb to something more sensible. Things like that, which would be really nice to see implemented. But I imagine they're still working on the 321 for now. Ian Morris, yeah, TAR, yep, we did have that. Thanks for that one. And yeah, Thomas doesn't change fuel consumption or sounds. The sounds have ever been on one as a passenger. The flight surgeon, what are some things you think ToLiss can improve? I've talked about a few things as we go through. I'm tempted to be critical of the product because I think it is really impressive. Here we go. And they did a great job because it's a hugely complex airplane, and I've been amazed at how many things that are implemented. The big thing for me at the moment is certainly going to be let's see if we can get the autosave situation. Oh, look at that. Let's hope this works. I think it was the weather change that triggered that. So let me get the thrust right. So it's in thrust climb, nav, climbing up to 360. Come on, airplane, you can do it. The gear is up, the flaps are at 0. We're on standard. Thank you for your patience, guys. That was absolutely ridiculous. I'm very embarrassed. I may have to reconsider my use of Vulkan. But it worked great on the last stream, and we did that with Vatsim. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I mean, ultimately, a proper streaming computer is going to be the answer to a few of these issues. Off we go, departing in our very smart livery. I think what we'll do is we'll get ourselves up in the air and then we'll consider trying Vatsim again. Thank goodness for that autosave. So as I was saying about the ToLiss, it's got some great features like the autosave situation, as we've just seen. I'd like to see its vertical profiles done better. I'd like to see the level offs shown. So in the real airplane, if I set an altitude in here, it would show me a blue arrow where I'm going to meet it. And it's just a shame that it doesn't do that yet. I understand from the forum they are working on the vertical portion of the FMGC, because I think that'd be a really nice finishing off part. Because I'm going to be honest, although we can work out our 3-degree glide slopes and our descent energy, and we do use rough sums to see exactly when you're going to level off to try and get it just right, it can be quite tricky, especially with wind and so on and things changing around you, whereas the airplane showing you is really handy. It takes a lot of the work off that. Okay, pre-cruise procedure. I like the name of that, pre-cruise. Haven't heard that before. Passing 10,000 feet, left and right landing lights set. So accelerating, that's good. Let's turn those off. As we've said before, they do cause a rumble in the cabin. Some pilots will turn them off even before this point. There's no law saying you have to have them on, certainly in the UK and Europe, below 10,000 feet. In certain situations, you would be wise to, though. That's done. Seatbelts can go off, yeah. I've forgotten those many times. LS push buttons off. Yeah, I wouldn't have had them on for takeoff. If you would do, if there was low visibility procedures and you wanted to confirm the runway you were on, so you could use it to identify the localizer, something like that, just to make sure you haven't accidentally lined up on the left or right runway. Not a problem in Amsterdam, perhaps, because the runways are quite separated, but there are places where there's two runways right next to each other. So that's all done. Airport button active. Yeah, that's a great one. I like that. That's absolutely what we should do here. So we have our constraints. We know we're meeting that. We're above 9,500. So that's not really telling me anything. And if we look through the flight, it's not going to tell me anything for the rest of it. There's our level off. I don't know if that's been added in this update or not. I'm curious. Let's try. I'm just going to wind this down. Let's see if I put it at, I don't know, let's put it at 20, 18. Let's see if it gets closer. That would be a great feature. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So I take it all back. They have actually already addressed that, it seems. What if I try vertical speeds? Let's put it really close. Let's do 16,000 and 1,000 feet per minute. And it's there. And then if I wind it up, that should... Oh, brilliant. Well, there you go. I need to take it back. Everything I just said. ToLiss have been hard at work, clearly, because that is really good. Because previously that's been a little bit lacking. We'll see if it happens in the descent as well. Okay, let's go back up to 36,000. Yeah, some features I love about the ToLiss is its ability to, and there's thrust, climb, and climb, to save configurations. So it will save everything, including all of this in the MCDU. The real Airbus simulators that airlines use aren't typically that clever even. They can't save absolutely everything in quite the same way. Often they lose parts. So to have every switch and everything like that saved in it is really, really impressive. And it's so quick to reload as long as you're in the right place. Alternate flight plan, copy active. Yes, absolutely. So now you go to the secondary flight plan and you just copy over. We don't need all this junk behind us now, so I can just copy what we've done into there, and then it's just neater. VOR is clear if not in use. We'd go to the RadNav page. So what you hear guys say would be happy to clear and copy, because pilot flying will be busy flying and the pilot monitoring can clear out the RadNavs and then go into the secondary and copy the active. That's quite standard sort of Airbus phraseology. Oh. How are we doing, guys? Let's see what I've missed. That's how I got BSS sound working. Yeah, I've heard good things about the sound mod. I think I was watching, was it V1 Simulations was talking about that, and he's misses that sound effect for the 321. I've never heard it on the I don't have the ToLiss 319, so I don't know how the sound mods compare. I do like the ToLiss sounds. I think they're pretty representative, especially in the cabin views. I like the PTU and so on. But I haven't tried the other mods, so I can't comment on them really. FD arranged goods. Yeah, absolutely. The FD issue was fixed on the 321, which is great in this update. Ian Morris, how often do you hand fly on a departure? Sorry, guys, I'm going back a bit in the questions, but there was a bit of a big pause there. So I'll just clear out that. That's done. So I like that checklist, absolutely. And we've done that. Parameter standards, yep, done. Cruise procedure. Okay, that's coming up. How often would you hand fly a departure? Well, nice day out of Amsterdam like that. Yeah, quite likely. I don't tend to do it in X-Plane at the moment, whilst I'm just making sure I get all the buttons right and we don't accidentally log ourselves out of Vatsim or anything like that, which I need to remind myself to log back in shortly. So it does vary, but on a nice day, there's absolutely no reason you can't. Then I would do it. If there was low cloud, turbulence, strong winds, reasons like that, then you'll probably put the autopilot in. If it was busy airspace, so you were taking off into the London TMA, hand flying may not be a great idea, because pretty soon you'll need to start reducing your rate of climb as you get near to other aircraft and so on. So busy airspace would be a reason not to. If you've got an emergency turn procedure, so if you have an engine failure and we then need to start turning left or right, cases like that, you'd probably consider using the autopilot so you're ready to deal with that. You don't want to have one person hand flying while the other pilot's trying to work out an ETP if it just reduces the workload. So basically, if the workload's fine, then yes, you can hand fly. And it's quite nice too. It's good to get a feel for the Airbus. It's really nice flying with a side stick. I highly recommend it. And it's probably what a lot of you guys know best from your flight simulators. It's certainly how I grew up on computers, using a joystick as opposed to a yoke. So it's a really nice way to do it. And as we talked about, if you haven't seen my normal law video, The Airbus is really good to hand fly. I mean, if I disconnect the autopilot now, which I can do, so that's the autopilot disconnected, and I'm not touching the side stick now at all. It's completely neutral, and it just sits there. It trims for us. It will sort itself out. It will stay at 1G. It's comfortable. It's smooth. The only time, you make it uncomfortable would be if you're tempted to sort of constantly move the side stick like this, little small movements all the time, and you can feel every movement if you're sitting on the airplane. So trying to stop yourself doing that can be a challenge. So keeping it nice and smooth. There we go. Crash, 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 sim crash. Yep. Yeah, that was a dark moment so far in the stream. So thank you guys for sticking with it. And Aerial F, yeah, it's brilliant that the ToLiss has backed that up. Really pleased with that. RIP A321, yeah, absolutely smooth flying. Thanks for coming along as well. Sorry if I've missed anyone who has joined. You can check the log.txt file. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, Swappy. I should have a look at that. Smooth flying. Do you always turn on brake cooling after landing? Now, this question's come up in some other videos as well, actually. I've been meaning to talk about the brake cooling. Basically, no, you don't need to turn on brake cooling. A lot of airlines will fly around without brake fans. They're not a requirement of the Airbus. And you can get away with half an hour turnarounds without brake fans quite easily. If you have really long taxis, so if I landed into Amsterdam and knew I was going to do that long taxi out, then I would expect that to heat up the brakes a lot. So I would be tempted to use the brake fans to make sure the brakes are nice and cool before we set off, and also do single engine taxi as we did. So not every landing, but if there's a reason to. If you've landed at maximum landing weight on a hot day and you've got a short turnaround and a long taxi, then yes, absolutely, brake fans would go on. You don't turn them on as soon as you vacate the runway, though. You try and leave them as long as you can, really, so just before you park on stand, because the brakes can get different hot points and so on. I don't fully understand it. I'm not an engineer, but there are lots of different features to the brakes and the way they heat up and cool down that a lot of studies gone into. So leaving it for a while is a good thing, unless obviously they're going to get too hot. So if they're going to go over sort of 500 degrees, then I would turn on the brake fans. But that's not official brake advice. That's just that's a typical sort of pilot attitude to it. We don't like them getting much over 500. That would be a pretty hot landing. Obviously for takeoff, we need them below 300 degrees. If we have the brake fans on, we need them below 150 degrees. The reason is, if you've got the brake fans on, it directly cools the sensor. So when you turn them off, the brakes will actually rise in temperature again to their true temperature. So you could find that they're much hotter than they should be. And what you don't want to do is take off and have really hot brakes sitting in the wheel well of the airplane. It's just not a sensible idea, because they are, as we say, 300 degrees, and they're big pieces of carbon. So they can give off a lot of energy. There is no super chat option. Captain Mateo Chewy. No, I'm not actually sure what a super chat option is. I have seen Streamlabs is a thing that a lot of people use. So I'm looking into maybe setting that up. I'm not sure what features that would offer you guys. A bit of moderation. Maybe it can provide some info like my specs and why that my simulator is struggling, things like that. But I need to do some more research into that. Like all things, this has been a big learning process, and you guys have been great helping me through it. So thank you very much for doing that with me. I have about 10 approaches saved, says Spooky Man, so I can practice my landing and go around. Absolutely, and that's what I really like about the ToLiss. Having that feature available is really powerful, and it's quite good when I'm making my videos as well, to be able to set up what I want to do. You probably saw in my saved situations there. Crash was not caught by everything. No, it was a very weird crash, that one. I'm not entirely sure. It even showed me a screen back to the gate, which I don't know how that happened. Captain, look into how to enable super chat in YouTube. That's very kind of you. I don't need. I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm looking for donations. I simply, the computer runs fine, and we manage this so far, but I have to just be slightly aware of its limitations when we're doing these things. I'll have a look at super chat. One thing I have noticed with YouTube is, because of the size of our channel, so we're at 631, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. I can't believe we've got to 631 subscribers. So thank you all. I know you guys have been talking about it and spreading the support, so that's really kind, really appreciate it. But YouTube doesn't let you, below 1,000 subscribers, it seems to limit a few things, which is why I made the Discord, because I couldn't send you a message or anyway a community post to say, oh, we're doing a stream later. I had to just upload the thumbnail and hope people could see it by logging into YouTube by chance. So the Discord is great because I can do that directly on there, and I can put my new videos on there and chat with you guys. So I don't know if when we reach 1,000, if we may not, but if we reach 1,000 subscribers, maybe that will open up some more abilities in YouTube. So it could be a limitation like that for now. So I'll have a look. I'll see how it works. So let it go. Not necessarily at least for this crash screen. Yeah, absolutely. I think channel with low viewer count subscribers won't have the option. There you go, swap yes. Yeah, I suspect you're right for now. So thank you guys for the kind words and for working on it, because yeah, I'm thrilled we've got this far. So if this is the size of the channel, then that's great. I'm chuffed that you guys enjoy it. A quick thing I have noticed, it seems to be pretty unique to the coast of Amsterdam, is this grid format. I've flown to other parts of the world and it hasn't shown me this. Now I think this is to do with the Vulkan update. It didn't do it before, and I don't have the default texture for the water. I've changed it to the slightly more turquoisey one, as you can see, which I like. It looks a bit nicer, a bit more appealing, but it does seem to give this grid pattern sometimes, not always, sometimes. So if anyone else has that or knows how to fix it, it'll be greatly appreciated if you let me know. Right, how are we doing on our climb? There was a bug in the ToLiss where above 0.75 the drag was too high and we were seeing very low rates of climb. So let's see how that goes. Optimum is 364. So yeah, maximum is 383. I think I've said before, I wouldn't go within 1,000 feet of that really, unless it's very smooth, and it is luckily very smooth today. So that's fine. So really I would expect it to climb relatively okay. And yeah, 900 feet per minute at 31,000 feet, that's pretty good. So far it seems to be quite accurate. So many things to think of. There's a lot more than just flying. From Glenn, yep, there's always loads going on here. Aerial F. I recently watched a stream where a crash happened right on rotate speed with the MD-80. After all config to set up, everything crashed and no autosave. Oh, that would be devastating. Yes, I was pretty devastated those 20 minutes ago when that happens, but luckily we got here. So hopefully if it happens again, we know how to fix it. We may have to give up on the Vatsim side of things, in which case we'll do our approach into Dublin. It's a non-precision approach today, so something slightly different, or at least I'm expecting it to be, depending on, I suppose, which runway they're in use. Smooth flying, thanks for the answer. No, my absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming along and asking the questions. It's great chatting with you guys. Obviously, as you all know, we're not flying much at the moment, so it's good to be able to enjoy some quality flight time and with people who enjoy the airplane and flying around. It's great fun. If you said in the previous video, how long have you flown the A320 family? For how many hours? I've flown it for a few years, and I won't be too specific, but I've got over, let's think, it's going to be a few thousand hours on the 320 family. Yeah, so not 10,000 hours, less than that, less than 5,000 hours on the actual Airbus, but a few thousand. So that's about, let me think, that's going to be about 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years flying it full time. And I really like it. It's constantly surprising me. I learn new things about the Airbus almost every time I go near it. Certainly in the simulator, there's always something new to learn. It's so complicated. It's got so many features, and it does change a lot. It's unusual in that sense. It constantly updates, and Airbus will change parts of it, and they'll provide new procedures or change the procedures or change what they like, because they're constantly learning from everyone around the world and all the different incidents that happen. So when we get a notice telling us, okay, now you have to do this or you can't do that, it'll be because someone somewhere in the world was unlucky enough to find themselves in a situation where they found out that that doesn't work very well or needs to be done differently. So we can all learn from it. So yeah, it's really good like that. And there we go. I should put that onto airport, as I was saying earlier. I took myself off topic. But yeah, we don't need the restrictions anymore, so it's useful to see nearby airports. What we'll do is we'll watch the level off, and then I'm going to have a quick look into the FMGC and see if we have any progress there. I wonder if they've changed some of the features that we talked about in previous videos. Richard V, the channel has come a very long way in a very short time. Yeah, I agree. It's amazing. So, many thanks to you and all the people who come along regularly and support it. So thank you. It's great. Really pleased. Captain of Territory, that's what happens when you spam your videos everywhere. Yes, I should probably. I don't know if I'm trying to think how many times I've done that. Okay, 1,000 meters to go up to 360. Yeah, I'm sure there's a good way to promote the videos. I don't know if I've been too proactive or not proactive enough. I don't really know. It's very hard. It's all a new world to me. I've never seen that grid. Okay, so that's interesting. It must be the texture that I'm using. It must be slightly different. It was recommended by someone, and I really like it. It's a really nice addition to change the water because the other default is a bit dark. So when you're flying around the Greek islands, as we went to Skiathos a few weeks ago, the water just wasn't very appealing. So it's looked a lot nicer with the turquoise. But yeah, sadly, it's given us this grid effect in some parts of the world. Ian Morris, what is the normal procedure for weather terrain displays? PF on weather and PM on terrain, or does it depend on departure and local conditions? Well, you've answered the question perfectly there. It depends on departure and local conditions, and probably airline a bit. Airline SOPs, MAC out star. So let's just get ourselves into our cruise configuration. So as this says, cruise procedure TCAS to below. I'm going to do this up here, safely away. I must sort out the configuration, and we'll put that to below. No traffic around by the looks of it, and we're not on Vatsim. So that can go to below, and we'd run a systems check, and it's gone into out cruise. So let's have a look at these. So we can go through the all. Packs are looking good. We've got high pressure valves and intermediate pressure valves. So when the engines are at a relatively decent thrust, we can use the intermediate. When the engines come to idle, there isn't enough air being pushed out to power the pressurization. So the airplane will actually open up these high pressure valves and let more air in from the higher pressure part of the compressor stage. So the jet engine works, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but it takes air in the front, and it has a load of turbines that, sorry, not turbines, it has a load of compressor stages that are those fans that squeeze the air, get it hotter and really compressed and under high pressure. Then it ignites that with fuel and oxygen and sends it out the back. And as it goes out the back, it goes over the turbines, which are connected to those compressor stages, and they will spin those around, and the cycle continues. So this intermediate pressure is taken from a lower pressure stage from the initial part. So before the air has been ignited, it's effectively just air from outside that has been compressed and heated up. The high pressure is even further down that line, so it's even more under pressure, and it's hotter and so on. So it comes in, and you can see it comes out of the engine quite hot, 200 degrees Celsius it's showing here, which, yeah, it would be. And then it goes into all sorts of clever condensing and pre-cooling and stages like this, and it comes in here into the packs at 150 degrees. Comes out at a nice cool 14 degrees, which is an amazing piece of air conditioning considering how much air is being pumped out of the engine and into the cabin. So the air in the airplane isn't actually recirculated, it's mostly being pumped in from the engines. We can actually see where it does that. So if we look outside, we've got one pack inlet there, and there's another one there. So those don't actually let air into the cabin, they just use outside air, which they then run around the air supply to cool it down. So the air still comes from inside the engines. The Dreamliner is one of the exceptions. It doesn't use a system like this. I'm not entirely sure how it works at all, actually. Some of you may be more familiar. Right, let's have a look, just while the cat hassles me again, which is a regular feature at this time in the flight, it seems. So we'll carry on working through the systems pages. Yep, all looking good here. It's got landing elevation tuned in. So that's quite important because it plans its depressurization as we descend based on that. Outflow valve here. So you can see the outflow valve isn't even closed. The airplane hasn't had to seal itself closed to stay pressurized. If we look out here, we can see that outflow valve is hidden away. It's there. So when you do your walk around, you'll see that wide open on the ground, and then in flight it does close quite a lot, but that's a little bit open to let some of the air out again. Yeah, and these inlet outlets here, this is talking about the avionics bay. So that's the little holes. There is an outlet there, and there is an inlet. Where is it? There. So when it's nice and cold outside, like in the cruise, they can stay closed. It's more streamlined, more efficient, that sort of thing. Right, we won't spend too long on the rest. Yeah, generators are all working. I've got lots more to talk about with electricity. We'll do some failures of that as well as the hydraulics, because the ToLiss has a quite good failure engine built into it. Now this is interesting. Our fuel is looking good, so we have burnt 2.1 tons, which is nice on these new ECAM displays. It shows you the used combined. The old ones, it just says the individual ones. Oh, we're getting some lag. Let's hope that doesn't keep up. Okay, we survived. I think it says it loads new scenery areas, especially as we're flying over Manchester. I have custom scenery for Manchester, which seems to be a problem. Right, so yeah, we're down about 120 kilos in the left tank because we taxied single engine, so that makes sense. And if we add that 2.2 onto 6.2, that'll be 8.4, about 8.5, yeah, which is pretty much what we set off with. So pretty good. APU should just be off. Ah, they fixed that as well. That used to have numbers here, and now it's amber crosses, which is absolutely right. Oh, they've been hard at work, the ToLiss guys. It's really good. Cabin temperatures. Does the fuel have temperature yet? No. So I would expect to see a fuel temperature. You can actually see it on the real airplane. Quite important because we have to monitor it. If the fuel gets too cold, you have to descend because it could start to wax up and become not very good. Quite rare, very rare in fact, to have that become an issue. But on a really long flight with a very cold outside temperature, it is not impossible to have to start thinking about it. Doors are closed, excellent. Wheels nice and cool, 60 degrees. Not all aeroplanes have this pressure indication, so that's a paid for option. Lots of things on the Airbus can be paid for. Flight control is all being supplied by their respective systems. So we can see here this GBY, YB, this is telling us the hydraulic system that supplies that flight control. Quite a good status page, this one, because when you start looking at hydraulic failures, it becomes very clear of which systems you've lost and so on and which are affecting it. So we can see the left aileron, blue and green, right aileron, green and blue. So you can see the redundancy built in for the flight controls because the speed brakes are done by the yellow as well. So you can do roll even with the yellow system. Okay, so we've done that TCAS. Okay, descent preparation. Well, I better get on to that fairly soon. We're starting to reach the UK. A nice cruise. See, that grid effect seems to have disappeared now. So I have, I'm not too sure. I've been recommended Ortho X, I think Ortho X scenery for the south of the UK, or this would be the middle of the UK, because I can see now, I haven't done many flights in the cruise, and I can see what you guys mean. It's a little bit repetitive, isn't it? The texturing, you can see that it's not quite photorealistic. One problem I probably will have with that is going to be size. If it's a very big file, again, my laptop may need a bit of work to see if we can fit that in. So that's something certainly I'm considering upgrading. That's why I'm sticking with the ToLiss for now, and maybe we can see if we can upgrade some other features of the Airbus in the meantime. Sorry, so other features of the X-plane. Okay, so I was answering a question about the weather radar. Yep, so if I was taking off with terrain around, then I'd probably both be on terrain. If I was taking off with terrain and thunderstorms, then it depends. It'll be a pilot preference as to who has weather radar and who has terrain. Probably pilot flying would choose. Quite often, pilot flying would like the radar because the terrain you should be dodging with anyway by default because of your flight plan and your routing. So the terrain display isn't very useful for navigating. It's just an awareness thing. It shows me where there's water and so on. The weather radar, however, and if I just turn off terrain, weather radar should appear. Is it on? It would say WXR and it would give me the angle that it's showing. Ah, I see, because it's turned off, I think, because of the restart we did. So let's hope that comes to life. But yeah, the weather radar, you can, or you need to navigate by, basically, to some extent, to avoid thunderstorms. Let's set this to Cal. Actually, let's set it to max, see if we can get anything out of it. I don't think so. And this should be set to weather and turbulence, WX and T. Why wouldn't you want to display of both? This is quite an old school radar panel. The Neo, again, I'll be really interested to see if they add that, has a much fancier radar, which I'll talk about probably in another video. It's quite interesting. It's pretty good. So that's a very basic weather radar where the radar's on, it's sweeping, and it gives me a return. Something you can do in the real airplane, if I was to point the weather radar down, so all the way down, I would see a return on here, so I could check that it was actually working. So you'd often have it turned down just so at the edge of your screen you can see some returns, which will be the ground, and then you would hopefully know that between you and that return there's not a big thunderstorm. That's not reliable, of course. There are lots of different ways that could be misinterpreted, or you could miss one that's beneath you or above you, things like that. I say above you, you'd hopefully not, but it is possible that you could miss some weather like that. But yeah, sadly, it should tell me the angle, but it doesn't seem to be. I'm pretty sure it used to. I don't know if you guys have any more experience of that. I hope my audio doesn't cut out as the cat tries to join in on the stream. Okay, let's have a quick look through the comments, see what I've missed. So that was a very long answer to Ian Morris's question about the weather radar. Pavel's saying I'm still on 11.41. Yes, so maybe I should have stayed on that. We'll see. Richard V, do you feel like the time spent in the ToLiss has helped you keep your flows and procedures fresh while you've been away from the real aircraft? It's certainly helped keep me in touch with the Airbus way of doing things. Yes, I'd say so. Especially familiarity with switch positions and having to force my mind to run through the flows. Yeah, absolutely. I certainly can't study by it because, as we see, there are differences, so I wouldn't rely on it, but it just keeps your hand in at thinking about these things, which is really nice, especially some of the flying aspects. So am I high on approach, situational awareness building, things like that, like our approach into Madrid where we had to work out how we were going to get down and in. Swappy S. Captain, a request for you when landing. Can you pop out, open your screen ND and flight control page? I will try that. Yeah, interesting. The flight control page. I don't know how useful it will be, but yeah, you can have a look and see if that helps. I'll see if I can squeeze that in. I may forget. I do apologise if I do already. 11.41 for everyday use. 11.5 as a second copy until more stable. Yeah, smooth flying. I've learned the hard way that I should have definitely updated a bit later. Clearly. Thomas Mortimer. No, I did fly another aircraft before the A320, and it was not the 737. I won't get too specific, but yeah, I did fly another airliner before the 320. Don Jones, yes, awful to see that tragedy. So yeah, that's a terrible thing to see for everyone around the world. So yeah, my thoughts go out. Martin Skov, on a flight to Laui, I was unsure of which approach to choose, so I entered a few different ones before I knew it. The flight plan was a mess. Are there any tips for cleaning up a flight plan? There's a few ways. It could happen today, actually. We'll see. Currently, my flight plan takes us all the way through to Dublin runway 16. It could be very different to that. So you can just clear out the points, obviously, if I just put in clear and do that. Alternatively, if you did a direct to the waypoints, so say you had loads and loads of waypoints in here that you weren't going to fly to, and you decided you were just going to go, sorry, my cat's now chewing on the my microphone cable, so if I cut out now, you'll know why. I could go direct to one of these later points. So that would be one way to just clear it up. So it would delete everything up to that point. If you have repeats of points, you have to be careful to make sure you're going to the correct one. So that's one way to delete everything through to there. Alternatively, you could do, as I've shown in other videos, a radial in to that point. So the quickest way would be, yeah, if you can get a direct to the point you know you're flying to. Obviously, it's a bit tricky because if you're flying direct to that point, you are going to need to know that that's safe and what air traffic have cleared you to do and so on. Right, we're approaching our top of descent. Really, by 80 miles, you'd definitely have started to get some performance and things ready. So I'll have to just move on to that for a little bit. So let's get ready with our, let's get our chart up. And it says charts, it always confuses me. Of course it isn't, it's our flight plan. So we've got that ready. Airports, Echo, India, Delta, Whiskey. Now I'm hoping this weather's accurate. We shall see. I'm loath to try and reload anything. Oh, there we go, it's going more green, that's good. This is a question. Is this risky to look at the weather? Let's have a look. Let's risk it. We've got some weather loaded in, QNH 1022, and it has been refreshing weather. Okay, let's not fiddle with that. Let's resume flight. Fingers crossed that works. Again, we know the ToLiss has been saving in the background, thank goodness. So, approach. Well, that's going to be hard without the ATIS. I think it's time to try and load up Vatsim. Let's have a go. So here we go. Again, guys, I do apologise if this fails, but I think for the fun of it, we can try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So, there are a lot of centres. My flight plan should be in. I'm going to refile it now to make sure that they know I'm here. I'm not sure of the protocol of leaving and rejoining Vatsim. EIDW 8 is 124525. Someone might tell me I'm about to get in trouble here. So let's get this ATIS. Excellent. We have Kilo. Sounds pretty reasonable. There we go. Should I be talking? Do I need to check in with another controller? I'm just going to have a quick look at the messages, see if I've missed anyone pointing me out. Captain Matteo, thank you, but that's very kind of you. If you do promote the channel, then thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, a few more talking about Vulcan. Yeah, don't rush into it like I have. Some advice coming out, so which looks pretty good. Make sure the active secondary haven't flown past waypoints. Yeah, so some great other ideas for how to clean out the flight plan using the secondary. Yeah, absolutely a good idea. And yeah, please join my Discord to talk about these things. It should be in the description for this video. If it isn't, I'll add it again. Lots of paid for add-ons like gaming microtransactions. Yes, Glenn, I agree. There are loads and loads. Orbex GB, yeah, that's the one. I need to have a look at it. Dougal, hi Dougal, thanks for coming along. Sorry I missed it. The Simwings had a group flight yesterday to try and raise some money for the Simwings charity, so I was unfortunately busy. I've been busy for the last couple of weeks, as you may have noticed. I've been lacking in videos, so apologies for that. June, though, should be getting back into more streaming and more tutorials to come. Oh, the Spain UHD for free. Interesting. Excellent. So yeah, thanks Dougal for coming along. Actual field view of the captain by Masen Hasuma. That's an interesting question. I'll have a look at that because it's very hard to judge. Obviously, our eyes are always moving around, as Matteo Chewy says. It's a bit hard to translate that directly. Is there a rule of thumb for when to activate the approach mode? What impact will that have, and can it cause some problems? We'll look at that as we go down, Ariel. But I wouldn't do that until I was sure I was ready for the approach. A lot of airlines around 10,000 feet in the descent, but then once you activate it, managed speed will slow you right down. So if you need to keep the speed up, you have to use selected speed. The Airbus will tell you when it wants to activate it. It will draw a... Oh, have I lost everything in here? No. It will actually draw a delta big D point on the green line, which we can see about there. Let's have a look. Is it drawn on here? That magenta D. So that's telling us that's where it's going to activate the approach phase. So if we fly along the green line, it will automatically activate at that point. I would say that's a little bit late. I would do it earlier because I want to make sure it's ready. Otherwise, when you manage speed, if you're at 220 knots and you manage speed, but you haven't activated the approach phase, it will just accelerate back to 250. So earlier than that point, I would say, certainly no later. Richard V, there you go. That's interesting. I'll be curious to see how the field of view generator works. Very interesting. Yep, excellent. And Dougal saying the next group flight 27th of June. So if anyone wants to join in with that, the Simwings link is in my description. Excellent. Right, let's get this set up. So we've had our enter destination information. So let's put in our ATIS. QNH was 1023, which is a relief because my simulator seems to not be updating too much. Temperature of 18. Wind of 080 at 9. Now I know the wind was varying, but for this one, I want it to be the most average wind. So it was 080 at 9, varying between 050 and 110. So I'm going to put in the varying I'm not too worried about. I would certainly in my landing performance account for the worst case wind for the performance reasons, but for this I can put in that for the most accurate ground speed mini. So it sounded to me like we're doing the RLS, runway 16. So that's fine. Here it is. I think it's a low platform, is it? Nope, 3,000, pretty reasonable. RLS minima for an ABC 417. That's us, 417 into there. We'll do a config full landing with medium water brake because it's a short runway, as we know. And this has been updated in the last update, which I'm very pleased about. So the missed approach procedure, climb straight ahead to Delta Whiskey 007, maximum 3,000 feet, then turn left to Kerav, climbing to 5,000 to join hold. So because this first limit is 3,000, I'm going to put 3,000 in here. And that's also the altitude I'll put into the window for the go-around. You'd put the first and most restrictive. Okay, so that's the box set up. Let's see and check through our flight plan. So we're going to do a little hat now. So if I go to plan, zoom in and scroll through. BAGSO, adds this, Kerav, BAGSO on kilo. Will get cleared, something different I'm sure, but there we go, in Gati, and then now for the approach, there's Delta Whiskey 007, 3,000 feet, and then left to the hold at 5,000. So that's all in there. Radio nav aids, well, we've talked about this before. Has it tuned it yet? No, it's still wrong, but it does tune it later, and that's slightly unrealistic. I would expect it to have already tuned it. I'm going to put in the threshold, India Delta Whiskey 16 into the progress page. Otherwise, cheapest primary accuracy high, which is great, but I'm not doing an RNAV today. Performance, we've loaded up. That's all in. Fuel prediction, 2.7 with our alternate as well, so that's great. We've got plenty of extra fuel, as I'd hoped. That's why I put it on, so 1 hour, which wouldn't be unreasonable, I suppose, if they were down to one runway and expecting it to be busy. And then we'll just copy that over into the secondary as a backup, in case we make a mess of our primary for some reason. So runway, star, temporary, nav, frequencies, and course. Yeah, we've looked at that. Bearing distance on the progress page, absolutely. Descent page managed. I'm not sure what that means. Managed /270 descent speed. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so in performance, we can adjust our descent speed. So I can see here it's going to do it decimal 76/277. So it will descend at Mach decimal 76, which is what we're doing now. And then it will transition to 277 knots. That's great. That's fine. I could choose to do it faster. So I could put in a transition to 300 knots. Now I say that. Let's see. Yep. So it will actually transition slightly earlier. And we'll be going a bit faster. So there we go, slightly faster descent. I'm going to press clear and it will revert to its default, which I think will be most suitable. Yeah, that's nice detail in the checklist. So this is not quite a checklist, but I see a procedure, so that's pretty good. So yeah, QNH, temperature, winds. Oh, here we go. I'm getting contacted. 12805. Now these panels, I don't think, they're not my favourite feature of the Airbus. They're a little bit fiddly to use. They are quite clear as long as you don't press the wrong buttons. Here we go.
Flight level 11067.
Yeah, okay, let's transition altitude, yeah, that would go in from the ATIS. And they said it's 60. In the descent, it's a flight level, because obviously we're on a flight level. It's a transition altitude on the climb. So these can change. If the QNH was low, they might raise this. So yeah, absolutely, you would enter that. And this will mean that the airplane will remind us appropriately and start flashing when we go below it. Right, let's talk to air traffic control. I'm getting myself high. Manchester KLM 741, flight level 360 to PENIL.
KLM 741 Scottish, hello, squawk 6276.
Squawk 6276, KLM 741. 6276.
554, inbound to Takeoff, flight level 230. Easy 8912, speed 250 knots.
Okay, that's in. Not sure, was that what I had earlier? I just missed. Yes, I was already squawking that. I did have a question about ident. If they say squawk ident, what does that mean? And maybe that's more suitable here. You'd press this little button, ident, and then it's going to put the ping on your location basically on the ATC's radar. I'm not an air traffic controller, so I'm not entirely familiar with how it works, but something similar to that. So it highlights you, and it's a way of confirming that you've heard them and that you are actually who they're talking to. Auto brakes medium, engine out, acceleration we've done. I'll get descent off him shortly. Arrival we set up. Altitude bug, altitude button. KLM 741, request descent.
KLM 741, descent flight level 270.
Descent flight level 270, KLM 741. 270, we are high, so best way to get down, thrust idle open descent. Now, in the real airplane, I wouldn't do this. I'd be very careful because when you put the speed brakes like that in the 321, this VLS would go right up to your speed. But in the ToLiss, it seems to work fine. I am 100 miles from the airport and I'm 36,000 feet, so I'm way too high because at 35 I need 120 miles to get the descent and the height off. So I'm going to also increase the speed to get more drag. So let's do that. Open descent. In the 321, with the autopilot in, you can use up to full speed brake until you have flap 2. But as I said, in the real airplane, this VLS would have come up right through us. I think ToLiss are working on that. They have mentioned it. So actually, it's not going to be too hard. We're 5,000 feet high. But as you can see, that is going to come down very quickly. 6,000 feet per minute, yep. If we did this for long enough, eventually the cabin pressurization wouldn't keep up and we'd get an ECAM warning complaining and telling us to reduce our rate of descent. So that is a bit silly. Let's not do that. As I said, unrealistic to be able to do that in the real airplane. Let's put those in. It's something I've done far too often on these streams is forget the speed brakes. Thomas Mortimer, if you select approach but then for some reason can't continue approach, is there a way to revert back to cruise or descent phase? Yes, and that is a trick that a lot of us pilots forget about. See, the speed's actually running away from us, so you have to be quite careful. Just winding up the speed. Route to Sitku, descend flight level 200 KLM 741. Flight level 200 and direct Sitku. Sitku nav. So that's a great question, Thomas. Yeah, to change it back, let's say I'd have to level off, but if I put in my new flight level there, it would work. So if I level off at flight level 200 and activate the approach phase and then decide, actually, I don't want to do that, if I put 200 into cruise, it will revert to the cruise phase. And that would enable you to be back in out cruise and so on. So absolutely, it is possible. So this is more procedures. So these are, yeah, pretty good. Speed brakes. Here we go. So half, max with autopilot engaged. You can actually, in the real Airbus 320, it's half only. In the 321, you can use the full speed brake. But as I said, it has that own warning. Even in the 320, it's quite common. I don't know if people have other opinions on this, but I would often put it slightly through to make sure I get half speed brake, which doesn't do anything because the airplane just doesn't deploy them that far. Until you take out the autopilot, it won't let you have more than half. Okay, we're back on profile. I can't, if I go to manage speed now, we'll see that the nose comes up and we'll probably, we'll see, we may get a little bit high while we lose that speed. Yes, TCAS is working. There we go, some other traffic. Excellent. That's great. I've been waiting to see if we can get that to work. You can see here, very slow getting the nose up, so the speed is struggling to come back. I think the real airplane probably would pitch up a tiny bit faster than that. Maybe not at these speeds though. 340 knots is a bit silly. And here's some other traffic beneath us, so I would certainly start considering reducing my rate of descent so that I don't get a TCAS warning off them. Swap yes, it's better to activate below 10,000 feet with the selected speed knob. Yeah. Oh, that must have been for me.
KLM 741, speed 250 knots.
250 knots, KLM 741. 250, right. And now you can see why you don't want to start off an approach high, because if they make you reduce your speed, it gets harder to maintain profile. So as we know, my calculations in the box are calculated on 277 knots, but I'm going to be going slower, so there's less drag, so I'm actually going to get high, which we can already see happening. So if you see that happen, if you get given a slower speed, you know that you're going to need to start doing something else. So I'm going to use the speed brakes. Now, I'm not sure which arrival they'll give us into Dublin, but we have the shortest route planned, so I think we'll probably get a bit more room than this. Weather radar doesn't seem to be doing much, so let's bring the TCAS back on, and I can see there's no weather. At night, a lot of airlines will require you have the weather radar on because you may miss it, especially if you're in other sorts of cloud.
Roger, climb now, flight level 60. Climb now, flight level 60,
Okay, so speed brakes are out. We're reducing. Want to sync rate less than 6,000. There you go. So yeah, if you do more than 6,000, you'll see that it starts to give you an ECAM. I don't know if the ToLiss simulates that or not. Right. So we've recovered the height. Let's go back to constraints so I can actually see how we're doing on the profile.
Shamrock 3 Mike Tango AFM.
And this is quite a simple arrival via Aruda.
Shamrock 2 on Kilo Whiskey, speed 250 knots. Speed 250.
Dublin has lots and lots of arrivals.
2 Charlie Whiskey, descent flight for 150.
And if we look,
Level 150, Shamrock 1.
I was expecting to do the BAGSO 1 Romeo. So let's have a look at that. That's an RNAV arrival. Yeah, so there you go.
Contact Dublin 129.175, goodbye.
129.175 KLM 741. Goodbye. And there we go, we've leveled off. Right, let's see what Dublin say, because lots of different arrivals. Some of them have a lot more track miles than I've set the airplane up for. So we could find we're actually quite suitably low. And there we go, speed brakes left out again. As I've said many times, in the real airplane, you absolutely keep your hand on that. I need a speed brake lever to have in my little office so that I can not forget about it. I think that would be the answer there. 129.175. Let's go and see what Dublin had to say. We got Kilo. I actually had the ATIS for once at this point. That's another rare feat. So it's probably out of date by now, but we'll see. Dublin KLM 741, flight level 200 to Sitku.
KLM 741, good evening, descend flight level 150, BAGSO 1 kilo arrival.
Descend flight level 150, BAGSO 1 kilo arrival, KLM 741. Right, here we go. BAGSO 1 kilo, descend flight level 150. So, I don't know if we're high yet. I'm going to start off with 1,000. So we've got VS 1000, outblued down to 150, 5,000 feet to go. That's fine. 250 knots. I should have told him we're doing 250 knots because the previous controller may not have told him. So I'll let him know shortly. And he said BAGSO 1 kilo. That's what we're doing. So my only question would be, do I need to put in a VIA? RS16, BAGSO 1 kilo. And if we try... So we're not doing the Romeo. That's good. We can get rid of that. Does it have any points there? VIA Kerav. That looks more suitable. That seems to be what's planned on here. In we go. Excellent. Yeah, so...
KLM 741, descend flight level 130.
Descend flight level 130, KLM 741, and we were given 250 knots by previous controller.
741, Roger, you can maintain 250 knots.
250 knots, KLM 741. Okay, that's fine. So 250 knots. So, yeah, how far away are we now? 60 miles, 20,000 feet. Yeah, we know that we're high then, don't we? Thrust idle open descent, 250 knots. Keep it descending. Traffic climbing away from Dublin beneath us. That's quite fun. I like that TCAS working. That's great. And we can see here this 230 knot restriction. So if I was in managed speed and managed descent...
741, contact Dublin 132.575, good evening.
132.575. KLM 741, goodbye.
Bye now.
Then the airplane would account for all of this on its own. So that's... it's pretty clever. It will account for the speed reductions as well, so it will calculate its profile accordingly. So if we're allowed to use higher speed later on, then we can solve the height issue that way. Now, hopefully this is the frequency for the ATIS readback, 32575. Dublin, good evening, KLM 741, descending flight level 130 to Rimvu, 321 with Kilo, and we've been given speed 250 knots.
KLM 741, Dublin control, thanks, descend flight level 80.
Descend flight level 80, KLM 741. 80, down we go.
ISO 330, Dublin control.
Let's have a look.
ISO 331, hello, climb flight level 1.
Richard V has posted the spreadsheet into X-Plane discussion channel of Discord. Excellent. So yeah, guys, absolutely, Discord's there available if you want to join in some more chat and find out about these streams a little bit earlier. Ian Morris, is there a rule of thumb for descent managed speed? Not really. It would depend on your cost index primarily. So this descent speed in here, that was calculated because I put in cost index 5. Cost index 99 would have had a faster descent speed. I wouldn't go more than 320 knots. 330 knots is probably a bit close. As you saw, we got very close to the red bar. If there's any turbulence, then that could have been even worse. Flight 24, dirty up. Yeah, absolutely. That's would be our technique. In a heavy 321, it may be that would be better for us to come back to 230 knots and put out flap 1, because once we get flap 1 out, the slats are out, it'll be much easier to use the speed brakes because the VLS will be much lower down. But for now, as it's like this, we'll do it like this. Booking Alice, what's the fastest speed you're allowed to descend? Well, I wouldn't want to be doing sort of more than 6,000 feet per minute, as that checklist said, and even that wouldn't be for very long. We try and descend probably something like 2,000 to 3,000 feet per minute as a maximum. If you're near terrain, you have to reduce that. So I can't descend at 7,000 feet per minute if I'm at 5,000 feet. It would just be too dangerous. You'd have the GPWS give you warnings and things. So some airlines have a rule where sort of within 3,000 feet of the terrain, you keep that rate of descent under control, less than 3,000 feet per minute. So there's other sorts of airline SOPs for that. Mazen Hosuna, descent level off. Yeah, we leveled off there, probably because I didn't speak to the controllers in the right time. Too busy nattering. So how are we looking on the profile? Well, the airport's now 30 miles. We're at 10, so I think we're probably not too far off the profile. And if I look at my progress page, yeah, 1,300 feet high. That's not too bad. 121.1 KLM 741. Goodbye. Wow, they're being very good. They've got loads of controllers online. 1211. I'm impressed that there's so many controllers talking us through each stage. I'm very pleased with this Lua script that makes the water look like this. I think it looks much nicer than it did originally. Really nice texturing. So thanks for that recommendation, guys. Now we'll see if we can get a word in. So I'm actually going to be a bit fast at Kerev, which will be fine if they let me. I'm not going to be too worried about that. Dublin KLM 741, descending flight level 80 to ADSIS.
KLM 741, good evening, flight present heading vectors ILS approach runway 16.
Present heading vectors ILS 16, KLM 741. Okay, there we go, we're into heading. And now it's time to start thinking about sequencing the flight plan. So we're going through 10,000 feet, put on the LS push buttons. Oh, there's another KLM. I chose KLM because they do fly into Dublin quite regularly. Get the passengers strapped in. And that'll do for that for now. Hopefully it's tuning India Alpha Charlie. Yep, it's got it now, 11.5. So it does happen a little bit later. Just for context, here we go, 3,000 feet at Gati, and then we've got I believe it's a standard 3-degree approach. There it is, 3 degrees. Down we go for the rollout. Pretty reasonable minima. And it looks pretty reasonable. Dimmy required, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk about the different arrivals, but that may have to wait for another video at this point. So here we go. It's possible the flight plan won't sequence. If we don't get close enough to Kerev, we're going to go within 5 miles. I think it might sequence. And by sequence, I mean it will jump to the next waypoint. Yeah, we're low now, so that's fine. Do that and that. Let's get that vertical speed under control. Oh, we're about to level off anyway. Let's do 500 feet per minute. This will not be a very efficient descent. So here we go, passing it. So by sequencing, I mean we should have the waypoint in front of us as our 2 waypoint up here. If we don't go close enough, this can happen. So now the airplane is working on the basis that I'm going to return to Kerev and then go to Aruda. And that means that my fuel planning will all start to go wrong. This time will start to increase instead of staying the same. Our fuel on board will start to reduce. Oh, there we go. It worked. Luckily, it did sequence. If it didn't, you could just clear out. So I would just delete that point so that the next one becomes my 2 waypoint. There you go, 500 feet per minute, soon to level of 80. So auto brakes. Yes, it's a not very long runway. Let's have a look at the airport. Lots and lots of instructions in Dublin. Like a lot of local procedures, but we're landing on 16, 2,000 meter runway. Not much of an inset threshold, so that should be fine. There we go, leveled it out. So medium water rate could be absolutely fine. Planning to vacate. I think we're parking somewhere around here, up at Link 4. So vacating maybe Mike 1 or Hotel 1 if we're lucky. Otherwise, down here at Alpha. We'll see. We're quite light, but not much of a headwind really. Only 9 knots. And it's 9 knots across the runway, so not going to help us much. Let's have parking stands ready. That's going to be quite important to this. Yeah, so the real Dublin has a lot of instructions. They've got this joining runway, which is quite unusual. So they're very clear about whether you're cleared to line up or on which runway you're cleared to line up on. And they will have aeroplanes lined up on this runway, ready to take off on 28, which is quite unusual. So yeah, it's quite unique in that sense. We've done that. Time enough, yep. Arrival. Altitude, altitude button. 2.5 miles before top of descent. I'm not sure exactly what that
KLM
means, but
153, turn right heading 130
there we
degrees.
go. If above descent path, pull. Yeah, open descent would be best for if you're high.
KLM 741, descend to altitude 3,000 feet, QNH 1023.
Send altitude 3,000 feet, QNH 1023, KLM 741.
KLM 741, reduce minimum clean speed.
Minimum clean speed, KLM 741. All right, let's get down. So 3,000 feet, we got our thrust idle open descent. QNH of 1023 is set, so we have altitude blue 3,000. Now he wants minimum clean, so now I'm going to activate that approach phase, because why not? Because when I manage the speed, I'll get minimum clean. And this would be a situation where you'd have some trouble if you were too high, 2,000 feet high. Yeah, so in real life, from this position, you may have to ask for more miles, because I wouldn't be able to use VLS. Or, sorry, I wouldn't be able to use the speed brakes, because as I said, that VLS will come up. But what we'll do is we'll pretend that VLS is coming up. And we'll simply, we're below that marker, so we're below our flap limit, so flaps to 1. And now you'll see that VLS goes way off the bottom. And I will just...
741, that aircraft just on pause now in the middle of my airspace. Turn right heading 310 degrees. You know what, disregard that, I'll put you in front of them. Turn left by 5 degrees.
Left by 5 degrees, KLM 741. Okay. Left by 5, that will roughly do. Hopefully we don't get a TCAS. I don't know if the ToLiss does full on TCAS, but there we go. And now I will just select the speed at roughly where my clean speed was. And there we go. So speed brakes are out, getting the height off. I'm going to start thinking about sequencing that final approach now. So let's get the radial in. Let's choose a waypoint on the ILS, which is going to be Garty. We're definitely going to go via Garty. And we'll put it in our opposite radial.
When you've approximately 21 miles to touchdown, you will cross the localizer.
Roger, KLM 741.
Easy 8912, speed
21 miles, so that's okay. We should have enough room to do that. That's more than 3 degrees, but we don't want to mess around. Oh, I seem to have got that wrong. How have I done that? Let's do radial in.
KLM 153, speed 160 knots, maintain until 40 DME.
There we go, and then pull heading.
KLM 741, reduce speed 180 knots.
180 knots, KLM 741. Oh, this could be tricky. So I've done that. Let's use full speed brake, which we would be able to do now because we've got flap 1 out. And if I need more drag, I can put flap 2 out because we're below the flap speed. I'm just going to remove the checklist for now. I'll get through to the questions shortly. He told us we're going to go through the localizer, so that's fine. That means he's going to intercept us from the other side. So if that's happening, you do want to be back on the speed. Once we're below the green speeds, it's a little bit uncomfortable to start maneuvering the airplane without more flap out. So actually, I'm going to put flap 2 out anyway. So there's flap 2 traveling, and let's now convert to a vertical speed because it's going to give me more fine control over my vertical profile. I don't necessarily want the airplane to just dive down flap 2 thrust idle because there's a lot of drag with flap 2 now they're out at the back of the wings. So if we do that, it could get a high rate of descent and we could start getting terrain warning issues. So here we go. Lifting 120 degrees, clear the ILS 16, KLM 741. Heading 120 degrees, clear for the ILS. Now I'm not going to arm approach until I'm pointing the right way. I don't want it to do anything funny like intercept a wrong localizer lobe or a wrong glide slope lobe. So, and the Airbus guidance is when your trajectory is towards the airport, that's when you would consider arming approach. But yeah, if we look outside, we can see all that drag out on the wings now. Great looking livery. I did provide the link, so again, all credit to the artist who did this. And here we go, coming down on the approach. Okay, let's not mess around too much. I have a habit of that. I can see I'm low on the profile. I'm 15 miles away, 4,000 feet, so not too low. I don't want to mess this up actually. So to maintain 3 degrees with a ground speed of 190, yeah, I've got to do at least 800 feet per minute. So I'm going to keep that for now. I'm pointing in and towards, and my platform at Garty is 3,000 feet. So I need to be at 3,000 feet by that point. Arm approach, autopilot 2. There we go, glide slope and localizer armed, autopilot 1+2. Sadly, the vertical speed should also show me a level off on this line. Cleared ILS 16 when established 180 to 6, KLM 741. Okay, 180 to 6, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, so it should show me a blue arrow, and I would see where I'm going to level off, even though I'm not on a navigated path. So that's something I'd like to see added, certainly, as we talked about earlier. Pavel has asked, yeah, where is the flight level 80 descending blue arrow? I think it's missing when you're not on nav mode. That seems to be a theme here. Okay, so we're getting back onto the profile. 180 to 6, we can do that, but it means I'm going to fully configure at 6 miles from 180 flat 2. We're below the profile. 500 feet per minute will be fine. I want to be sure I'll be on the localizer before I'm on the glide slope. I don't want to be high on the glide slope as I get onto the localizer, or I've got to do my glide slope from above. I do have a video on how to do that if you find yourself in that situation, but it is slightly higher workload than normal. Lock star. Great. Let's do 300 feet per minute. Try and make this a little bit more continuous. Speed brake's definitely in, just checking that. I'll have a look through some more of those comments as we get on the ground. Apologies, I've been a little bit ignoring them. 2 miles to go until we are going to configure. That's absolutely fine. So, how are we doing? We can see the traffic in front. That's great fun. Yeah, I like that. And it's gone into localizer capture, or localizer mode. It was in lock star. You always get these boxes around it when it reverts or changes. Glide slope start. 160 to 4, KLM 741. Okay, he wants 160 to 4. I'm going to fully configure at 4.5 miles. It could be a little bit tricky. We'll see if we've slowed down by that point. 118.6 KLM 741. Thank you. Goodbye. All right, this is where it gets tricky. Let's not miss that. So 1186.
203, speed 220 knots.
Speed 220,
Nope. 1186. There it goes. Okay, we're on tower frequency. We're back at 160 knots. That's fine, and that's until 4 miles, so we've got room. We've got our radio altimeter alive. It's matching up. Yeah, a little bit of elevation, 200 feet, so we know that QNH is roughly right. And we're visual, 2 whites, 2 reds. Tower KLM 741, ILS runway 16 at 6 miles.
KLM 741, it's on target and continue approach number 2, traffic to depart, correction, no traffic to depart, service with 082 degrees 9 knots.
Continue approach KLM 741. Excellent, that's good news. I'm glad there's not traffic departing in between. It could be a little bit tight with only 5 miles by the time they line up and take off. Right, so 160 to 4, I said we're going to do it at 4.5, which would be pretty tight to configure, but there we go. If we have the air traffic control restriction, it seems a reasonable restriction, so I'm not too concerned. I think we'll be okay for 1,000 feet, just about, unless there's a hill on approach I'm not aware of. Wow, busy on the ground. Let's hope my computer manages. There's the KLM in front. That's pretty cool. You can see them there. Okay, 4.7. Let's get ready. First thing I'm going to do is manage the speed. There it goes. So the thrust comes to idle. Now we'll drop the gear. Go to flap 3. And go to flap 4. The hydraulics can handle it. Some airlines don't like you to do all of those things at once because it does put a bit of extra strain on. But as you see, it is fine. Cabin ding. Get those lights on. Arm the spoilers. And here we are, fully configured on final approach, Cat 3 dual at VAP. So we're stabilized at 1,200 feet, no problem. Not such a problem on this approach because, of course, we've got a 321 with a relatively high VAP. So from 160, only 20 knots to lose, not too difficult. We're stable at 1,000 feet, so that's great, so we can carry on. And we asked if we could have the flight control page. So let's see if I can bring that up for you guys. I don't know if it's much use, but there you go. See what it looks like. Anything useful comes out of that. I'll just lower it down there. So autopilot disengaged, 30 feet, check, retard and hold, yep. That's good stuff. There's our RAS. I didn't even get a chance to talk about it. It's amazing how much you guys managed to bring out. I love it. I love all the enthusiasm and conversation we have. Right, let's see how we do. I haven't practiced in this. This is a wide runway. You can see it looks wide, so it can sometimes make the perspective a bit different. Let's see if we can get clearance. KLM 741, final approach.
KLM 741, clear to land, service with 082 degrees 9 knots.
Good land, KLM 741. There's our clearance. Autopilot coming off. Put up the PFD. We've got our tail strike warner on the PFD now, which is nice. You see this is a short runway. The touchdown zones sort of merge. 3 whites. Keep that descent rate on. Might have to flare a bit early.
1,005.
Oh, bit of a bounce. Just hold the pitch, get in reverse, and we'll go to max reverse. Now, this is where I struggle. My rudder setup is not very good. Keep it near that centre line. Back to reverse idle as we come through 70 knots. Release those brakes. So we had reverse green, we had our decel. Now we're down near taxi speed. Let's go to forward idle. Wow, I wonder what descent rate that would have shown. That must have been a bit of a thumper. So here we go. We're going to take this first left. So yeah, we didn't make any of those. No chance. Get the speed under control. It's hard to judge the speed at this point in the flight. Often you'll be you'll be so used to the speed on approach and the rollouts that you think you're going really slowly when actually you're still doing sort of 50 knots. I just well, we'll see how that comes into use afterwards. Let's get vacated, get over this line, and let the next plane land behind us. Excellent. I did try and get some custom scenery for Dublin for today, but sadly that was not possible in time, and I didn't want to ruin the stability. Hold position 1218 KLM 741. Right, we're stopped. 1218. There we go. 121.8. So what we'll do is we'll go taxi in, park up. I'll have a look through some of the questions, and we'll go and see the replay from the outside, certainly. Ground KLM 741 vacated.
KLM 7141, Dublin Ground, hello, taxi left Foxtrot, hold short link 2.
Taxi left Foxtrot, hold short link 2, KLM 741. And here we go. We can see that already this is more complicated than it was in Amsterdam. So Foxtrot 1 is going to be the first left and hold short of link 2. So we are on Bravo 2, first left, hold short link 2.
Springbok 474, hold short of link 4, contact ground north 118.
There's Springbok. Oh, good. That's fantastic. The scenery works. Sorry, the my Vatsim library is working. So we're over the threshold of the runway. We're out of the way. Let's get the strobes off and the landing lights off.
Continue taxi, Foxtrot link 2, stand 316.
Foxtrot link 2, stand 316, KLM 741. Thank you. Okay, well, it's first left. Foxtrot link 2, and he wants us on stand 316 over there. Okay. Let's see if I can get this right. 36 meters is quite a common restriction on taxiways. KLM 321, yep. They wouldn't expect to hear that much. So let's get ourselves round here. Have I got this right? Yeah, we're following the Springbok, which is the South African 747. Don't see many of those these days. Link 2 is going to be the right turn here. We'll take link 2 in, stand 316. Okay, so yeah, we've got the lights and the strobes off, disarm the spoilers, get the flaps to 0, get the transponder off of TARA. As I said, it's inhibited, but we just don't need it now. Don't need the LS push buttons. So we're going to take a right turn here, link 2, going to start up the APU. There's so much to do. And here we go, this is slightly unrealistic on the brake temperatures. I don't think we'd have reached 500 degrees just yet. So I think that's a little bit hot compared to what I'd expect. Let's see if we can get this right. So we turned right on link 2, effectively following Juliet to 316, should be on the left. I think, yeah, we only have one option, right here, and then 316 will be on the left. There's two lines there. This could be a little bit tricky. Thankfully, a shorter taxi than we had before. So what have we done to do it? That's before takeoff. Oh no, it's gone past the one I had. I shouldn't have closed it. So flaps 0, speed brakes, transponder, APU starting, and definitely we'd get rid of the radar at this point. And you can see the box has just gone to its default ready for departure again, which is absolutely what it would do. So I think it's going to be the next left, and hopefully that is correct. I'm sure they'll tell us off if it isn't.
United 674, hold short of link 4, contact ground north 118.
316. Yeah, there's two lines, so I think this first line will be 316. Still haven't got auto gate working, sadly, but there we go. Yeah, look at that. That looks right, doesn't it? Loads of planes here. It's good to see them all come. I imagine they're all on departures, are they, by the looks of it? Sitting out there by the threshold. Okay, coming on to stand, we turn off the lights because the ground crew don't want to be blinded. Those lights are surprisingly bright, even the taxi ones. Let's see, let's just park where we feel like. Get ourselves on the centre line. Once we've got that line in between the screens, we should be roughly on the centre line. Get the speed under control. Cabin crew can disarm the doors at this point. The ToLiss seems to do it roughly automatically. Let's do our usual while I don't have auto gate. Get ourselves lined up, and you can see it running away with the fact both engines are running. So there we go. That'll do there. Set the brake.
Shamrock 17 Alpha Taxi, Bravo 1, and hold.
Right, the APU is now available. That's fantastic. So let's shut down those engines. We don't need them. This can go to 2000 standby. It depends on local procedures for that. Brake fans can go on before I turn off the beacon. It sprays a load of brake dust everywhere, so we can get that out of the way before the ground crew get close. Let's let the passengers walk around. N1s, oh, they should still be displayed by now, I'd have thought, but there we go. We'll turn off the beacon because they're nice and slow. And here we are. Welcome to Dublin. Guys, thank you very much for joining me on this flight. And now what we're going to do is have a bit of a rewind and go and see what's going on how that approach went. So we will disconnect from Vatsim. That was good fun. I expected more of a congestion, I must admit, on the approach. But there you go. It was quite easy straight in, basically, even a little bit high and fast. So let me just go to the replay mode, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. Back we go. It might take a minute. I'll just have a quick look at the question. About the water, once X Enviro gets updated, I highly recommend investing. It's a SIM change. Okay. So thank you for that. There's another another recommendation. So X Enviro, I'll have to have a look at that. I've got a few on my list. I need to try and work out which ones are the best value for getting the SIM up and running. I think we'll jump that a little bit. Oh, we'll be here for a little while. Here we go. And what I'll do is I'll just leave it on the approach while we chat through a couple of things. So here's from gear down, about 4 miles on final approach into Dublin. I apologise if I missed anyone's messages or questions in the meantime. Is it common to level off, or are you required to follow CDA? It's not a requirement. They ask for it. If you don't manage, you don't manage. You won't hear about it as a pilot typically, unless I suppose you kept burning extra fuel. But even then, I'd be surprised. So you have to do the safest thing. And certain approaches, it's not even recommended to do a CDA. If you're setting up for an RNAV, it's a bad idea to try and be too clever, or you can mess up the coding. But we do try. We try and be as efficient as we can. Second to safety, obviously. Active Sky as well. Yes, I've heard about Active Sky, Matteo. I've heard good things about that. Thank God for YouTube, so you can watch over and over and over. Ian, okay, excellent. I'm glad. It will just go straight up on the channel after this. Richard V, I've just posted a fixed version of the calculator on Discord. Please use it instead. So there you go, guys. Jump onto the Discord if you want to have a look at that. Richard's kindly provided a calculator to work out what you should be able to see from individual seats. Thanks for the good luck on the landing. And Liz 05, yep, we didn't manage the centre line as ever. I have real trouble with the rudder. I only have the HOTAS. I don't have any rudder pedals, which I don't know if that's making a difference. It makes it quite sensitive. So small movements on the controls. I've got the HOTAS 4 if anyone's interested. Thrustmaster HOTAS 4. Glenn, no, it's my pleasure. Thanks for coming along. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. Thanks Swappy as well, and Fly24. Thank you so much for coming along to watch. Don Jones, I use Xpilot. Yes, I'm pretty pleased with it. It makes life quite easy. So here we go. Let's go to our runway view. Oh no, that's not the right one. So we're going to see a little bit of a skip, I think. A bit of a touchdown. Up we go. Hold the attitude, and there you go. No problem. Still inside the touchdown zone. And here's that shocking line. Surprising, isn't it? Even from inside the flight deck, that looked quite bad, but actually, it's not all that far off. But certainly, that's not good technique. But yeah, it's a wide runway here as well, which gives us a bit more room. Let's see if we can get. I quite like the runway view. Let's see if we can convince it to come on. There we go. So leave that playing. And we'll have a motion as it goes by. This is what I use in a lot of my videos. You guys will recognize it. It's quite handy because it focuses on the airplane for you. And it gives a bit of realism as if you're sat by the side of the runway. I quite enjoy it. So there we go. Great sound effects on the ToLiss as well for the rollout and reverse. You can see me wobbling around trying to get us back to the center line. I've joined Vatsim and having problems with melon watching. What CSL do you guys use? Yeah, Simon, I hope someone can answer that for you. I have one of the most basic setups that I got off a YouTube tutorial. Possibly Bluebell. I'll have to have a look. I was showing you the landing rate again on the stream. Right. Yeah, I agree, Glenn. I like this livery on the 321. Thank you, SB. Thanks for joining in. Ariel F, Martin Skov, thank you. Pavel, thank you very much. Richard as well. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Don, Simon, very kind of you all to come along. Alipay too. It's my pleasure. Thank you all. There'll be more streams coming, more tutorials coming. So if you need any more Airbus style videos, there's plenty on my channel to get your teeth into if you fancy it. Otherwise, I'll be doing some more flights in the near future. So I think what we'll do then is that'll be it for today. Thank you all so much for coming along. As I said, not for any real world use, but I hope you enjoyed it, and see you again in another video soon. Discord server available there if you want to have any more chats, make video requests, that sort of thing. Otherwise, I wish you all a very pleasant evening, and hopefully see you again in another video very soon. Bye bye.